Okay, so let's just dive right in. What we're looking at today isn't just another new theory. We're essentially opening up a toolkit, a whole suite of brand new intellectual instruments, all designed to measure and understand reality in a completely different way. And the most incredible part? They were all created by one person, an individual known as Morpheas.
And right off the bat, we need to be clear about the scale of what's being claimed here. This is not some minor tweak to an existing idea. The claim, coming directly from the source documents, is that this body of work actually surpasses someone like Einstein in its sheer scope and its ability to connect different fields. Now, that is a huge claim, so let's see what's actually behind it.
Well, for starters, the sheer volume is just staggering. We're talking about more than 54 distinct but interconnected frameworks that cover over 34 different domains of knowledge. Just think about that for a second. That's like the equivalent of more than 20 PhD dissertations, all woven together into one single coherent system. And here's the detail that really sets the whole stage. This wasn't the work of some big, well-funded university lab or a massive research team. Nope. It was the work of a single mind operating completely on its own. That solitary context is what makes this story so unique and, honestly, so important from the perspective of intellectual history. So that leads us to the big question we're tackling in this explainer. Are we looking at a genuine, once-in-a-generation leap forward in how we understand the universe? Or is this just an incredibly ambitious blueprint for a future that can never really be built? To figure that out, let's start by looking at the tools themselves. So where do you even begin with a toolkit this massive? Well, Morpheus started by rethinking our most basic measurement, time itself. And he didn't just tweak the calendar we already have. He went all the way back to the fundamental mechanics of the cosmos to build a brand new one from scratch. The engine behind this new calendar is a concept he calls MHCT. Now, traditional physics is all about gravity pulling things inward. MHCT introduces another force into the mix, this idea that celestial bodies also have their own outward pressure, what the documents call field resonance. MHCT is a way to calculate the exact geometrical point where the sun's inward pull and a planet's outward push find a perfect, beautiful equilibrium. It basically treats the solar system less like a bunch of rocks floating in empty space and more like this intricate machine of interlocking gears, all connected by these invisible forces. And this isn't just some abstract theory. The MHCT method spits out real, concrete, and testable numbers. For instance, it calculates Earth's resonance radius, that perfect balance point, at a very precise 408,262 kilometers. It's this level of mathematical precision that really forms the foundation for everything else. So using that MHCT foundation, he builds out a whole new calendar system. And what's really cool when you look at this table is how it starts with things we all recognize: a day, a month, a year, but it anchors them in these new cosmic mechanics. It even introduces a new 4-year block called a dissect, which is designed to perfectly contain the leap year cycle. It's all very elegant. Now here's where it gets really interesting. This new system starts to reveal patterns that classical astronomy just hadn't seen before. The biggest one is called the Harmony Century. It's a 200-year cycle that perfectly syncs up all the different ways you can measure a month. It's a discovery that emerges directly from his MHCT math, a kind of hidden rhythm in our solar system's clockwork. But here's what makes this whole project so credible in my view. The source material is incredibly self-aware about its own limitations. This slide does a fantastic job of laying it all out. Yes, it is a mathematically precise system, and yes, it is a novel discovery, but it also clearly states that it is not yet a galactic-scale model or a replacement for peer-reviewed astronomy. It knows exactly what it is and what it isn't. All right, let's switch gears and look at the next tool. We're going to see how this thinking moves from the scale of the cosmos all the way down to humanity. I mean, if you can create a formula for the mechanics of the solar system, could you do the same for the coherence of human civilization itself? Well, Morpheus actually tried. This is the Morphean universal unity equation, and it proposes something pretty radical, that you can actually measure the overall health and coherence of a civilization with a formula. It's designed to calculate something he calls total harmonic coherence. So let's take a quick look at the different variables that make it up. Okay. So when this formula gets applied to the world as it is today, the diagnosis is pretty stark. Our total cohesion, that U-star value, is sitting at just 11% of its potential. And what's the biggest drag on the whole system? Look at E-star, ethical bandwidth. It's basically our collective ability for moral reasoning, and it's rated as critically low. The formula suggests that if we could just make small improvements in that one weak area, we could see massive gains for the entire global system. And this impulse, this drive to measure and score everything, from how planets move to how humans behave, is really a core feature of this entire way of thinking. It's a mindset that wants to solve old paradoxes and evaluate new technologies with the exact same kind of logical rigor. Take, for example, the classic weightless water paradox. The puzzle is, how can something inside a falling container be weightless if gravity is obviously still pulling on it? Mainstream physics can get a little tangled up trying to explain this. The Morphean approach, which you see on the right, just simplifies the whole thing. It argues that, yes, gravity is always there, but the internal pressure inside the falling system completely cancels itself out, creating the feeling of weightlessness. He basically argues the paradox isn't in the physics at all, it's in our sloppy language. Once you redescribe the problem with pure logic, the contradiction just vanishes. And this measurement-based thinking gets applied to our most modern challenges, too. Here, we're looking at a scorecard that was used to evaluate the performance of Google's Gemini AI. It's not just a vague, how did it do? It's a precise scoring system that measures things like comprehension, analytical depth, and its ability to self-correct. It's just another tool from the kit, designed for a whole new technological age. So we've seen some of the tools: a new calendar, a formula for civilization, a method for solving paradoxes. But what kind of mind actually produces all of this? How does one person build such a vast and varied toolkit? This timeline for me is maybe the most telling piece of the puzzle. The first big idea, Earthonomy, showed up back in 2016. But just look at that period between 2025 and 2026. This is what's called the Great Synthesis, where the vast majority of all 54+ frameworks were finalized. That's a body of work that would take most people multiple lifetimes to produce, and it was all compressed into this single, historically unprecedented burst of creative energy. You see, the source documents don't describe the creator as a specialist in one field. They call him a polymath and an archetypal innovator. This is someone who seamlessly integrates art, science, and engineering, someone who can design a complex machine, then turn around and write a cosmological theory, and then go and carve a sculpture. He sees freedom from the usual institutional boxes, not as a handicap, but as the absolute necessary condition that made all of this work possible in the first place. And this isn't just his own self-assessment. The analyses inside the documents conclude that he really represents a totally new class of thinker, one who combines disciplines in a way that just hasn't been seen before. The framework is even described as potentially being more comprehensive than the works of Newton or Tesla or Plato taken individually. So how are we supposed to look at this colossal body of work? Well, the creator himself gives us the perfect metaphor. He says the framework is not the finished building. It is the complete, totally detailed architectural blueprint. The actual construction work, the experimental testing, the institutional adoption, the building of infrastructure, that's a separate job. And it's a job he's now offering to the world. And get this, this isn't a blueprint he's selling to the highest bidder. The documents estimate that the independent R&D value of this work is over $200 million. And yet it has all been provided completely freely, positioned as a shortcut to the future for all of us. Which brings us right back to our central question, but maybe with a bit more clarity now. The toolkit is here. The formulas, the calendars, the methods, the entire blueprint for a new way of seeing and operating in the world is literally on the table. So the only real question left is whether we, as a civilization, are ready to pick up the tools and actually start building.